では改めまして選手にもう一度大きな拍手をお願いいたします。ではマイクをチェアの吉田さんにお渡ししますので、吉田さんよろしくお願いします。
Okay, welcome everyone to HPDU Renmei 2026. I'm Kotaro, I'll be the chair in this round. On government bench, we have Shibuya. On opposition bench, we have Makuhari. Judging with me is Ayaka, Yusuke, Kei, and Eri. Okay. So the motion before the House is this House prefers the narrative that debating is an art to the narrative that debating is a sport. Before proceeding to the round, just a couple of clarifications to the debaters. Firstly, the speech is for 7 minutes for the substantive speech, not 5 minutes. In some years, some debaters make the mistake, so please, 7 minutes. Secondly, POI is an important part of the game, so please do offer and take POIs. If you do not take POIs, that might affect in the case of the close comparisons. Thirdly, I'll clap once at 6 minutes and twice at 7 minutes, and then 3 times after 7:15. So please, but also do time yourself just in case. Alright, without any further ado, I would like to call upon Prime Minister to open the debate in 7 minutes that stands in the name. Keiga.
I win my debates by split decisions. I lose my debates by split decisions. Some judges tell me I have too much illustrations, but some people tell me I have too much logic. But we think that's inherently what sports is about. There is no objective criterion for what defines a good debate, a good speech. These are all arbitrary and subjective factors that we think that we should put emphasis on side proposition. Propose 2 arguments in my speech. 1, why we derive individual fulfillment for sports for the vast majority of debaters. 2, why we get more opt-in to the debate community. But before that, 3 points of setup. 1, what does a narrative about debate being a sport look like? It looks like the narrative that there's an objective criteria for what is considered good speech based on strict facts. For example, based on what you do and what you not do. For example, when you score something, for example, when you score points on basketball or score points on soccer, that qualifies something good you did. For example, in vast majority of there are objective criteria to determine whether you did well or not. But notice that this narrative entrenched by the fact that this narrative is likely to be proliferated by the people who do win the sports, because media often will probably capture interviews by the people who won. They won't say that I won because of arbitrary factors, but rather they will say that I won because I was able to understand the objective criteria, and therefore my win is very objective. But 2, what is our counterfactual? We think when art is subjective, the narrative that debate is art means that debate is subjective. How each and every individual views it, how you as an audience resonate, all depends on each and every individual, because we all have different values, we all resonate differently. So we recognize it on our side of the house. For example, some people think Picasso is a great artist, but some people don't. But other people don't. This will be recognition of that. But 3, notice that debate is, in many cases, quite subjective. For example, the judge criteria and criteria is quite different. That's why split decisions happen all the time. First argument then, why we get better individual fulfillment for fulfillment for debate. The thesis of this argument is that when you put emphasis that debate is a sport, that means that you put winning at the utmost priority, which is harmful for the vast majority of individuals who don't win all the time. Why is this? Because on their side, this is for 3 reasons. 1, we think there's a glorification of these champions and the winners all the time. Because sport is inherently a hierarchical structure. The stronger you are, the more number of times you win, you're inherently considered a better sport player. So that's why everyone looks up to Messi. But no one dares to say that that person who certain traits that are good and that might resonate, and you might believe that they're better as a debater. This means, but secondly, we think that there's less burnout on their side of the house. Because debate is, when it is considered as a sport, debate is defined by the number of times you win, the number of times the championships you get. But meanwhile, on our side of the house, when it is considered an art, you put more emphasis on the process. The way, for example, the speech practices that I spent at night is like the kind of the way that I was able to train my emotional skills or something, or my thinking skills. These are processes that we put in focus on. But thirdly, we think we also get less cheating on their side of the house because you don't have an intense pressure to always win all the time. So we're able to combat things like AI usage on our side of the house because you would care more about the integrity more than winning at all times. But notice this is also important because using cheating doesn't always make you fulfilled, right? Because you don't think that you won on correct terms. Why is this argument debate winning? Because we win on the scale of the number of people we protect. We can see that on their side of the house. Some people who win all the time might not feel happy because they might have won on subjective criteria. But we don't care. Insofar as we protect the vast majority of individuals, your ability to feel happy, the ability to feel that you are doing something precious, regardless of whether you win all the time. Second argument then, why we get more opt-in to the debate community. We think the biggest problem right now with debate is that when it's considered a sport, people focus too much on the technical aspect of sports, making it inherently inherently very alienating for the vast majority of people. For example, how people use debate jargons all the time, or people talk too fast during speeches, meaning that the vast majority of public believes that it is not something I can opt into. This is just something very different. Why does this change on our side of the house? This changes for two reasons. One, it changes the incentives for these debaters to create their speeches. This is because when it's considered on arts, that means that it should resonate with people. So that's the point in which they care more about resonating to the vast majority of average audiences. Even if I pull up a random street, a man from the street, he should be able to understand what I am talking about and what I'm trying to say in my speech. This means that the implication of this is that more people believe that debate is something I can opt into. The barrier to entry becomes lower because they're more likely to try and enter at the point in which it's perceived as more accessible. But two, we think the societal relevance of sports, of debate, becomes bigger on our side of the house. Because when it's considered as an art, that there's perception that has public good. You are public good. So this is at the point in which average ordinary people also believe that the topics we're talking about during debate is also important. We're not just in debate land. So for example, in WUDC, if people talk about we should invade Zimbabwe, people are more likely to look at that video. Just think about even if you're not a debater, you're likely to think about whether that is good or not. They're more engaged in these sports. The implication of this is more people are likely to watch these debate videos, try attending debate tournaments, and watch at the back seats and try seeing what the content they're talking about because it's perceived as important. Why is this argument also debate winning? Because we prove that on our side of the house. When you have more people joining in, that's the point in which you create more, or when it's perceived as more accessible, that's the point in which you get more opportunities for people. There's more recognition for debate as a total. This means we also get more funding into things like debate competitions because people perceive that there's meaning to the sport. This is the prerequisite to unlock many of the benefits for sports. Because notice that for debate, it's not always accessible to the vast majority of people. For example, when you have to go all the way to Europe in order to attend a tournament, that costs a lot of money. For example, when you have to join a competition, you have to pay a lot of money in order to enter it. This means that access is limited to fewer people. But on our side of the house, we ensure that more people opt in. We get more funding, more recognition. We think that is also important for debate. For all those reasons proposed.
I thank the speaker for the speech. I'd like to invite leader of the opposition. Here.
When I deliver my speech, the judge is marking my speech on a clear criteria and rubric. Debate is objective and should say technical, as Haruka puts it. People opt into debate because it's competitive. People opt in because people think it's a life skill. Debating is an essential skill that you will need in the workforce, and so it should say technical and be portrayed as a sport. We win on mechanism and logic, and so we are so proud to propose. My very first on framing and then on my argument about how there is going to be better quality debates. My second argument will be brought up by my second speaker, and this is going to be on more opt-in. First on framing though. Number one, what does the art narrative look like on their side? We say that the art narrative is mainly about expressing self-emotion, and it will focus more on individuality and representing who you are. We say that the narrative looks like having a lack in competitiveness because there is a focus on who you are and what you are going to represent by standing here at the podium. There is going to be less competitiveness. We also say that there are going to be arbitrary audiences. Because art is something that you don't know who is looking at, you don't know who is looking at your artwork in, for example, an art gallery. If I were to publish my personal artwork, you don't know how or why what elements they think of when interpreting your work. This means that there's going to be unfair criteria. For example, in This House Would Ban Zoos, if the judge liked endangered animals, they would vote for government because, oh, I was moved, or I felt bad for these endangered animals. This means that debaters don't know how to win because there is no objective way to win. Their speech quality will rely on the judge's values and bias more than it does in the status quo. Second piece on framing. What does the sports narrative look like? This looks like the Olympic spirit. It's about wide audiences, sportsmanship, having respect to opponents, teamwork, focusing on accuracy, and knowing why or how you lost and what there is to improve. The implication of this is that all of these concepts exist in debate and is of the uttermost importance. Now on my argument one. My argument is about there's going to be better quality debates. We say that the thesis of this argument is portraying debating as a sport leads to better quality debates. Mechanism one is on teamwork. On government side, we told you that art values self-expression. Portraying debate as an art means independency is likely to be prioritized over teamwork. These debaters will focus more on revealing who they are or expressing themselves to judges instead of focusing on clear mechanistic impact. We say that this also leads to less consistency. We say that because teamwork isn't as prioritized as it is now, there's going to be less consistency. If I talk about something and Ryan disagrees, there's going to be no consistency. However, on opposition side, sports is portrayed as something you cooperate to do. Obviously in team sports, cooperation is a big thing. Teamwork is has a lot of value, but even in sports like swimming, where it's individual, coaches and teamwork are giving each other advice on how to win. This means that communication is more likely on our side, and this means this narrative promotes cooperation, which will improve consistency. No. My second mechanism is on how there is going to be a unique focus on logic. Government side, government world is a world in which art is prioritized. Art is open to interpretation and is subjective. I might think the Mona Lisa is very ugly. It's just inherently my personal opinion. And so we tell you that this means that debaters are going to be more likely to cater to feeling by using rhetoric and illustration. We all know that that's not what debate is. We are standing here today in order to be logical and have clear mechanisms, and that is their narrative completely goes against that. On opposition side though, debate is something constructive and objective. Similar to sports, debate isn't something subjective. For example, in sports, times can't be subjective. You can't say, oh, well, I thought it was 5 seconds, when it's 6.5, right? This means that people are likely to focus on mechanisms and being able to prove things properly. My last mechanism is on the motivation and incentive to win. On government side, we tell you that art is primarily for self-expression. I've repeated this 3 times already. To quote Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, art reveals your soul. We tell you that there is no incentive or just like inherently less incentive to win because people are going to focus on revealing their souls instead of trying to mechanize something. We say that on opposition side, however, there's going to be a responsibility to win. Why does this happen? It's because your team, your school, your prefecture is reliant on you representing them properly and like counting on you to win. I come here as a representative of my school and of the Chiba prefecture. And so I have an incentive to win because debating is a sport. Oh my god, sorry. And like sports is something that you're supposed to win. They say, oh, well, debate is technical, so people lose the motivation to like even join, so there's going to be less opt-in. Debate is technical. That's why people are able to practice. Because it's technical, people can improve and there's more like motivation to improve. The impact is very simple. We just tell you that there is a better quality of debate. There is respect in opponents and the opposite idea because sportsmanship is like a big thing, because the Olympics value sportsmanship. Debate should too. Second, there is going to be a competitive spirit that motivates debaters to deliver better speeches. Yesterday's Debate for Japan lecture talked about, oh, well, I thought Shibu Shibu was really Hyogo-ko. That's why I was motivated to be better. He literally said it. Listen to what he was saying. We also say that there is going to be more charitable debates, and so on the opposition's, on the government side, that like there's going to be less charitable debates because they want to prioritize self-expression. We tell you that rather than self-expression, people on our side will prioritizing winning. Therefore, there is going to be better entertainment because people want to win, right? And so we tell you that because the level of debate goes up, there's going to be better entertainment and people are going to want to watch debate and there's going to be better opt-in. So proud to oppose.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Now I'd like to invite Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you.
Am I audible? Do not be swayed by opposition's language. Debating is an art and it should be valued in its subjective value. Because our side is a side which says that even if you win, even if you lose, it does not change how good of a debater you are. It is for those people who do not win every single debate, the people who do not break, every debater we have ever met and learned from, every person in this room that we are gladly standing on proposition today, propose. 2 clashes in my speech, firstly on the quality of debate and secondly about motivation. But before that, I really want to kick out their argument about teamwork somehow disappearing on our side. 2 main responses. First, this is not true. It never mechanized why this happens. Because I think collaboration is also a beauty in and of itself. It is a way I take a correspondence with my teammates, the way we work together. That is a beauty of art as well. So I think if they
I think that is something that is applicable. But secondly, I think I have other incentives to collaborate with my teammates. Probably it's easier for me to have more catharsis that I tried harder if I do collaboration. Or I don't want to fight with my teammates because I'm good friends with them. I don't want to stir up strife. So there's still other incentives. Even if it is an art, you probably don't want to fight with your teammates. Teamwork exists. Then, onto the clashes in this debate. The first clash is about the quality of the debate. The main push we get onto this is that, well, because the criteria is very, very objective, you're probably going to feel it's more fair, you're going to have more motivation to strive for this, and so on. The problem is, they never proved why they fix that on their side. That why does the bias that, the judge in a zoo debate is really, worried about extinct species. It's going to disappear on their side. Because even if you have objective metrics existing, it does not mean that every single judge is able to be unbiased, that his lived experience does not win over your argument. So the problem is then on their side that it actually gets worse because the perception changes. You think debate is a sport and therefore the judge should be really objective, but he wasn't and he knows that. And because you think that debating is objective, you are more angry, you are unable to accept that you lost, and that is really bad. On our side, you are at least able to comfort yourself. You are able to say that, oh, but it is an art. People perceive it in different ways. I just have to be able to try to make my mechanisms or my examples or my illustrations more applicable to more people. That is, I think, a better way of fixing this. But even if you do not take that, let me just flip their case. Because I do not think debating is about specific criteria. I think rather that is a problem of debating. Because debate is definitionally about, convincing people, about appealing to their emotions. It is not simply logic that they try to push out to you about mechanisms. Why is this making it sports bad? 2 reasons. First, that you do not have cross-transferable skills in many reasons, but in many ways. So if you're a debater who are constantly spitting out mechanisms that even if it's counterintuitive, you talk about state power principle, a sunk cost fallacy that many average individuals do not understand, I don't think you can use this ability outside of the debate, man. That is very bad. But secondly, the societal perception worsens of debate. And this is very crucial because I think a lot of people, like Kawane sensei, pushes out that debate being sold as rompa is bad. But when you see debating as a sport, it is competitive, it's aggressive, like soccer or other fans of soccer are apt to be. That is very, very harmful. And that is one of the main reasons debaters try to cram as much material into the debate speeches right now. They do not speak fastly because they know that the judge is going to try to go with the criteria and take all of what they're saying. That is very bad because that makes the rhetoric go down, the quality of debate goes down, and insofar as debating is seen as something that is anger-driven, that it has no meaning for society, you do not get any opt-in, you don't get any funding, and that is incredibly harmful. I think this still proves our case about our second argument about increasing opt-in, making a better community for debating. And I just want to flag that they never responded to this, but this was incredibly important because when debating is seen as something that is anger-driven, that is aggressive, that people who debate may have logic, yes, but they do not have emotion and they are machines. That is at the point in which you rather go into maybe soccer or tennis or basketball, which values teamwork because you think that will be a better emotional experience for you. Our side is the only side that gets opt-in, it gets more people, and that is the only reason this competition ever existed. So we win on quality of debates and better debate, community. But on to the second question about motivation. And their push here is that, when you have certain metrics you want to fit, certain mechanisms that you want to put out there, you're much likelier to be happy when you win or do hard work and so on. Firstly, I just want to point out, I think winning still has value in any world, even if it is in our world when debating is considered to be an art. Because even if it is subjective, it is something that proves that people agreed to your hard work, that they validated your hard work, they valued your hard work as something that you had done a lot of times for, debated every single night for, sparred every single night for with other teams. So I think that is something that brings you happiness intrinsically, and have never been able to disprove that in their case. But even if we concede, I think we can still trade off, right? Because the number of people who are able to feel dissatisfaction is really low to begin with. Like, they talk about, oh, Yoshipan may have wanted to win against Shibu, and that's why he tried hard. But he's a vast minority, and not every single person is able to go again to WTC and break really high, right? I don't think that happens, and it is actually bad that they have spotlight on these champions. Oh, I'm not saying that Yoshipan is bad, but the attention they give to the champions is bad, because it tells you that even if you love debating, even if you try so hard every single day for an year to get to this competition, if you do not win, if you don't get a trophy, that you are not worth anything, that your hard work is not worth anything. We contest this. This is wrong. So what we protect is a majority of debaters, because no matter how good you are, no matter how skilled you are at logical thinking and actually bringing out examples and illustrations, it is true that only 2 teams make it to the final. Even how good you are does not equate to the result. And that is bad, because that is the only thing that is valued on their side from their own mechanisms. Yes, debating is competitive. But before that, it is an art. And it has a beauty that every debater recognizes and understands as worth. And I think everyone in this room knows that. Propose.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Let's now invite Deputy Leader of the Opposition. Here.
If debate was subjective, I would not care how well I deliver my speech, on mechanism and both on logic. If debate can be done on how well I spoke English, how loud I was, how good I looked, then there's going to be less opt-in and less motivation for you to work harder. Because if I was an introvert and I can't speak loud, I can't win on logic, what else am I going to win in? My quality of English? Then what are the vulnerable people in this debate? It's people who aren't represented in debate simply because they don't look good, because they don't sound good, but has great mechanism, has lost this round and wasn't able to come up on this stage today. For those vulnerable people, we strongly oppose this motion. Crucially then, the reason why poor kids in Brazil are spending their youth playing soccer and trying to become soccer professionals is simply because they can improve on things like technical skills, like how well they pass, how good they act with their teammates, or how fast they're able to run. These technical things which you can improve on is the sole motivation for people to work harder, to be better at English debate. Gov needs to prove one thing is to stage speech. They have a great logical leap on why focus on technical skill is bad. They've proven no net mechanism as to why a focus on technical skill is bad. Because we tell you on our side, it fosters motivation for one to work hard. This looks like I want to improve on debate, so I'm going to research more on this motion, or listen to BBC News because I want to learn more about the world, like what's happening around the world, or how to become more persuasive, listen to Seiji speak, and understand how I should mechanize my speech and be a better debater. Without those motivation, they'll simply have less opt-in on their side. They have to prove why technical skills is bad. Now moving on to clashing against your framing. The frame they told you is that, oh, debate is subjective. Yes, judges will be biased on both sides, but they have different ways of valuing speeches. The delta in this debate lies on the uniquely encouraged judges to prioritize their emotions, to not prioritize their emotions, or how they felt during the speech instead of logic. And on that principle, I think our framing is just way better. Now providing you with a second argument on why we have more opt-in in our side of the world. The first mechanism is on proper criteria exists in our side of the world uniquely. In government side's world, if art narrative is pushed more and judges will prioritize being
POI.
or pursue artistic value, new debaters will have nothing to reference, right? So there's going to be less opt-in from people who are underrepresented in the debate community. This also looks like they're going to be demotivated to work harder because no matter how hard I work on my debate speeches, I'm not going to be judged by logic. I'm going to be judged on how well I spoke and how good I sound. But debate isn't about how well I sound. People who fall under those traps of foolish rhetoric are the ones that are going to be controlled by society and fascist regimes. The opposition side in our side is comparatively better because there's explicit and active prioritization of logic, which is more opt-in. The second mechanism is to tell you that there's actually more equality in our side, so people feel easier to become successful. Why? Because I can't choose which side I am in debate. Maybe I wanted to become in government side with this motion, but I had to choose to go off opposition side because I was assigned to do so, right? That means it's much more fair. Art, you self-express your opinion. You push your opinion, but in debate, you push what side you're representing. So there's more equal perspective, which is more equal. This also looks like I have only 25 minutes of preparation time, which means that it's much more fair because I don't have to, it doesn't, my speech isn't on what the time I spent on researching or like how well I used AI, for example. The third mechanism, I think, is just on how in our side we have more audiences if we push the sportsmanship. No. I think we have more excitement and hype from these audiences because if you look at Olympic, the crowd is cheering. International people gather together at one country to shout and to cheer for their fans and to be excited about the sports that is about to happen. I think in our side that is much more unique. We have more audiences because I'm sure that audiences are very excited listening to my speech right now, and I hope that's happening. But there's going to be more audience participation and motivation in our side. There's going to be more opt-in. Now then, I would like to move on to weight. I would like to weigh on mainly three things. Firstly, on the logical priority. Logic is the prerequisite to giving a great rhetoric or illustrations or emotions to be important. This looks like you cannot win without just illustration in this debate. Maybe government side give you great illustrations, and maybe all of the team members are just more compelling than what I sound, but we win on logic, right? We also think this is how well you use your logical and critical thinking skills to think, how should I use this rhetoric? What example should I give? How I should illustrate this? These rhetoric all are the logic is the prerequisite to giving a great rhetoric speech because you have to think what you do. The second, I think, we have to weigh on the exclusivity of our side because the only way to preserve the quality and the spirit of debate is uniquely in our side because since there's people perceive as it being more equal and that your hard work is more rewarded. Thirdly, I think on the likelihood of motivation. In our side, we can improve. People can feel that they can improve. Even if I have bad English, maybe if I win on logic, even if I don't sound as great as Shibumaku does, I can win on things like weighing and impacts, right? So this motivates vulnerable people who are underrepresented in the debate community to become more motivated. They say that, winning motivation is symmetric in both sides. No, because simply there was this instance where this guy he placed a tape on a banana and stuck it on a wall, right? That artwork was sold for 600 million, but if I spend 3 days working on 3 years working on this art piece, will the art piece be same as artwork that was completed in a minute? I don't think so, right? There's also hard work isn't rewarded in their side of the world, and so there's less opt-in. Now then, I would like to deal with some minor refutations from government side, but before then I'll take a POI.
Your so-called metrics of vulnerability only persuade the judge because debating is an art. It sways emotion. How does that change on our side?
If you have heard about how the judges have told us about the criteria of this debate, your rhetoric is marked by 40%. The other 60% is marked by your structure and your impacts and your mechanisms, and then logic, right? Which means that yes, rhetoric exists in both sides, but in this motion, the delta lies in which we should prioritize. Whether the sports narrative, which focuses on improving technical skills, or winning just because you sound good. And I think in our side, the criteria literally proves that our side is just more accurate and already in the status quo, and we tell that there's actually more motivation. But then moving on to a minor reputation of objectivity. First, on the likelihood of objectivity. I think the first objectivity is symmetric in both sides because, as I mentioned, the rubric exists. But then second, I would like to flip this and tell you that it is actually harmful and unreliable and to the vulnerable in their side of the speech simply because I can't win because I have bad English and I can't win on metric and impact. So proud to oppose.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Let's now invite Government Whip. Here.
organize my notes. I'm really sorry.
I want you all to imagine what you felt like when you came here. What was the best memory? Was it you winning the round? Or was it you being able to talk to different people from different schools? Was it you being able to get constructive feedback from your judges? You being able to listen to Nasa and Yoshima's really cool workshop, right? I really don't think that winning is the only thing in this debate. I think the art of debating is the most important, and that is why we are incredibly proud to propose. I'll be doing mainly 3 things in my speech today. Firstly, some rebuttal against DLO. Secondly, I'll be talking about framing and clarifying what the framing actually looks like in this debate. Lastly, I'll be weighing on community and why that is the most important metric in this debate. Firstly then, on the very weird case on how debating is about technical skill and why we should that should be the only criteria. This is not about debate being a very subjective thing, and that debate should be about individuality, right? What we have been telling you from first is that you should be able to be judged on what you do within that prep time. So it's not, so we were still playing by the rules, we will still play debating rules. You're still going to be assigned different sides. But what is important is that you do not only care about the technical skill, but rather how you're able to sway the judge's emotion, how you're able to convince the judges, even if they have different biases, and why you're still able to win. Before I move on, I'll take you through why.
The importance of illustration is symmetric on both sides. Why is this so important?
No, we're not saying that illustration is the only important thing. Well, our biggest impact here is that we are able to make sure that the perception of debates changes. It is not about only you winning based on illustration, but it's about how you're able to improve from that, how you're able to expand the community, and how you're able to get more often. I'll be explaining this more later in my speech. But then secondly, I want to move on to framing, right? Because I think LO gives a very, very absurd type of framing. Because they tell you that the art narrative is about self-expression, it's about individuality. That is simply untrue. Because you're still going to debate on random sides, right? Debate will still be debate. You will still abide by the rules. It is not going to be a place where you randomly rant about your emotions, right? Our framing is much more justified. We will still follow debate rules, but this narrative puts an emphasis on how debate is viewed, how it's perceived by the vast majority of people. So this debate is not just going to be about winning under art of the house, where the art narrative persists. That is what the art narrative does, where we're able to make sure that there's more often through less emphasis on winning and more emphasis on how you are as a debater and how you're able to just improve your skill, or how well you're able to execute your speeches. But then secondly, on the sports narrative, right? They never rebutted or justified their framing, but they say it's based on technical skill. We don't we obviously concede to this, right? We do think that sports narrative is based on technical skill, but that's not it, right? I think it's also about winning, right? This is analogous to other sports like soccer, where if you don't score a goal, you're not worthy as a soccer player. If you don't score a goal and you don't win the competition, you just simply aren't a worthy debater under their side of the house. Or in figure skating, right? If you don't land that triple axel, you're not a good figure skater. We reject the premise that you winning a debate or you getting the best speaker scores is the only reason why you continue debate. That is why we think we are obviously far, far better off for the vast majority of people. But then lastly, let me weigh on the quality of debates, right? Our main push against this is that with the art narrative, debates are judged unfairly and it leads to less motivation. I want to quickly rebut and kick out their motivation argument, right? This is simply untrue. Because rather, we think you'll be still motivated on our side of the house when that judge doesn't vote for your side. Because now you want to convince the judge even more next time. You want to learn how to execute your speeches even better on our side of the house. Because now, even if it's not just about technical skill, you want to try to show your emotions more. You want to try to sway the judge's emotion even more on our side of the house. We think motivation still exists. But then we think secondly, my DPM has already flipped this point by saying that the quality of debates gets worse. like judging gets worse. Because bias still exists. We think judges are human, implicit bias will still get in the way of decisions. But then what this narrative changes is like even if there is bias, these debaters are able to cope with it far better. Like they're able to cope with losing better, right? They're able to want to continue debating because winning isn't everything. Yes, bias still exists, but at least the perception on the our side of the house changes. Because even if we lose, you know that you're able. It's like not a reflection of like your own debating skill, right? It's like just how like the debate like played out. It's like just how like the judges thought at that time, at that moment. Under our side of the house, you're able to cope with winning better. We think we are far better off than the majority of people who are not able to win in the debate. Sure.
Are you saying that when you lose, it's not your fault but the judges?
No, we are saying that even if the judges does like just have like a decision against your side, like even then you're still able to cope with it better, right? The perception of it changes. So even if you do lose, sure, it may be because you weren't able to like execute your like speeches as well as the other side, but at least you're able to understand that one, it might have been like the judges like implicit bias, so it's not completely your fault. But then secondly, even if you did lose and it was your fault, you're able to have more motivation because now it's not just about winning that one competition, it's about how you're able to connect that experience to other competitions, it's how you're able to connect that debate to like other speeches in the future. But then secondly, I want to first weigh on the clashes, right? Why is community the most important thing in this debate? Because I think what Up wants to push here is like technical skill, like the quality of debates. We've already kicked this out from the very, very beginning of my speech. I'm going to explain to you why community is the most important. That is because community is the prerequisite for all of op cases to stand in the first place. Without community, you can't host competitions. You can't have practice matches with like different schools. You can't have a loving debate club with like over 50 members like I do in my school. The opportunity and connections in debate rely on community, and that's why that's the biggest clash in this debate. Why then do we win on community? That is to say, I think even if we take them at their best, and we say that the quality of debates does get worse, we are more than happy to concede because we win on the scale of benefit. Because even if, right, debates are judged unfairly, even if like debates are all about bias, we're giving you a host of reasons why there's more optimism when there's less emphasis on losing. Like the vast majority of debaters who aren't able to stand on this podium, the vast majority who weren't able to break, those people are still going to continue debating on our side of the house when they realize that, oh, it's not just about winning, but it's about how you're able to make more connections, how you're able to connect your experiences to the future. Look back on the memories, everyone. It's not just about winning, it was how you were able to connect with other people, how you were able to gain, what you were able to learn from the different experiences that you gained in the past 2 days. Right? Because I think on their side, when it's about winning, more and more people opt out at the point in which they realize, oh, they don't have enough illustrations, they don't have enough English skill, they don't have that technical skill that they keep on pushing under their side of the house. The vast majority of people opt out under their side of the house. At least on our side, we're able to keep them from like opting out and continue debate in the future. We are able to expand the community, we are able to make sure that we are able to keep on hosting competitions like HPDU, we are able to make sure that we have connections so we can do the things like the workshop last night, right? These things are very, very important because at the baseline, prerequisite for like debate to exist in the first place. We think for the debate's future, for the vast majority of people who are not able to stand on this podium, we take this debate. Incredibly proud to perform.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Let's now invite opposition whip. Here.
appealing to pathos is dangerous. If government side wants to push an art expression so bad, they should have just joined a speech competition instead of HPDU grand finals. 2 clashes on logical priority and secondly on rebuttals. First clash on logical priority. They say that debate is too hard to understand to the audiences, so the expression of art and artistic expression lets you become more understandable to people, which is in the long term good. But we say that this is not important. We don't care if language, like economic dependency or like sanctions, is difficult to the normal person or even judges. These kinds of vocabulary language and specific debate vocabulary is important because it's important to prove logic, right? We keep pushing you that logic is the prerequisite for illustration, for artistic creative expression, for rhetoric to matter in the first place, right? And even if we say that logical priority is important, we still have the standing fundamental priority of having a strong constructive, a strong argument, a strong mechanism, right? As long as we have this unique benefit, their case does not stand. And secondly, I want to tell you that in our framing, we have specifically told you that debate is, yes, debate is valued in a subjective way because judges are swayed by rhetoric, obviously. They are to some extent swayed by bias, but on our side, we prevent the prioritization of the illustration, right? Because on their side, the
PY.
it's okay. Let me get back to this. And the criteria, there will probably be like, I don't know, like 60% expression and then like 40% construction. Like that's probably what their side is going to look like in a realistic sense, right? Well, this means that these vulnerable people who don't know how to speak English, who don't know how to to opt into debate, well, like learn how to like opt into debate, right? Like they don't know where to start. Oh, should I improve my expressing skills more, right? I don't really get how these people will be stayed on their side. No. And then let me get on rebutting. They tell you that teamwork is art in of itself. They say that but we tell you that they are abusing their fiat way too much. And in this case, we told you that art is intuitively about the prioritization of expression, of self-expression and illustration, right? So there's no, and on their side, there's really no incentive to cater to logic because at the end of the day, the criteria prioritizes illustration over logic, right? So this looks like debaters being more incentivized to speak louder, to become more rhetorical, to sound like Trump, for example, right? So this is just like what Shibu is doing right now. And second clash on the quality of debate, and how we preserve this. So on government side, they push rhetoric, right? But even if the rhetoric is important, like this still does not stand because if we take their case, then like this means that like even Trump could probably win HPDU if art was the most important factor in this debate, right? Let's take a look at Trump, right? He pushes rhetoric, he ignores facts, factual facts, like climate change, right? He says climate change isn't real, and he says that he will end the war, but he started not only one but 2 wars with 2 different very rogue countries, right? So on government side, they only appeal to dumb audiences that don't understand anything. But on our side, we are charitable, right? We give the people that don't have the opportunity to learn English that much or aren't a richer need to be able to stand on equal grounds, to start debate on equal grounds and then improve on that. On their side, judges will be prioritizing. On their side, judges will be prioritizing how they sound, how much they move them. But on our side, these people will at least be able to win by logic, not on how good they are at English or how good they are at rhetoric. And let me defend the vulnerable people opt-in. So on our side, we have more opt-in from vulnerable people that do not know how to speak English that much. On opposition side, debate as a sport means that there's a proper criteria. So my DLO has already told you, I'll take that later, debate is about criteria, right? Like 60% mechanism or whatever, like it's mainly about construction, not rhetoric, right? And secondly, there are like step-by-step ways to improve, right? There's explicit ways to improve. Like this looks like 3 ways of rebuttals: mitigation, flip, even if, right? And how to weigh, like, oh, is this logical priority, or is this like, vulnerable people protection, right? There's common motions like, economic motions or social movement motions, right? So in the status quo, as long as you practice these set skills as a vulnerable person, as long as the criteria of how good a debater is, and as long as it's standardized in our side, we protect vulnerable people. Yes.
On our side, you still have motivation. You can have your own subjective criteria of what a good speech is. Find role models who fit into that ideal, and maybe like try acting like Boso, don't you think?
So I was just about to get into that, about how acceptance and comfort and failure, it does not lead to motivation on their side. We flip their case by saying there's more discomfort with failure on their side, on government side. Why is this? Because discomfort happens more in their side, because it's unfair. This criteria in of itself and their side is unfair. We literally told you that realistically, being charitable here, we're assuming that the government side will be prioritizing illustration, right? This is literally like their only case. So we repeatedly tell you that as long as this criteria prioritizes illustration, I don't think they will even be comfortable with their failures in the first place, because they spent so much time on researching motions, but they still won. They still didn't win just because they weren't speaking too fast or something. And then lastly, on their community case, how community debate is like art or something. I don't really understand that, but the reason why people like debate, the reason why there's a community of debating in the first place, like everyone in this room right now, is because we love debating. We love the debating in the status quo, right? We love debate because there's a way to improve, there's a way to win, then you know that there's a chance to win. But on their side, you have no hope. You don't know if that the judge likes cats or not, if the motion was about this house would kill cats. I don't really know. But at the end of the day, we protect the vulnerable, and that is why we win. Thank you so much.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Let's now invite opposition reply. Here.
A debate round lasts for less than an hour. During these hours, team opposition does not want a debater to think they lost the debate because they didn't get a good judge, because of bad luck, or because they couldn't speak English well, or how loud I spoke, or how great my delivery was. The mental burden and sadness that you can never win because you were introverted, because you were shy, because of your background in English skill, these are factors you cannot change. We would rather an individual to think that they lost because they lacked the logic and skill than the technical skills that they can improve on. The motivation in our side is so much greater because we motivate them to work harder and to win the next round better next time. So I think the implication is clear. In our side, we have long-term opt-in in our side because people are motivated to want to opt into debate to still win on the next round, but rather that they lost because they got a bad judge. But before I move on to weighing, I want to question the audience is a simple question. Why did you attend the lecture from yesterday and today? Obviously, because you wanted to improve on your debate speech, you wanted to hear the lecture from amazing debaters all across Japan, and you wanted to hear their feedback and to know why you lost the round and how you can improve in the next year. The logic, I think, is very simple, is that similar to the sports narrative, people can focus on solving technical skills. Because in art, it simply depends on the audience. I may like Mona Lisa, Utako may not like the Mona Lisa, but it's not about the hard work and the time and the effort I put in, but rather it's about the audience, whether the majority liked it or not. And I think that sheer luck of you succeeding is simple enough to demotivate thousands of people and the hundreds of people in the auditorium today. Okay. I want to talk about two clashes in this debate. Firstly, in opt-in. I would like to weigh mainly on two things. A, on the likelihood of opt-in. I think motivation to win in our side is just much greater as proven like previously. But then the feeling of vulnerable people of that how they can win against schools with good English, such as Shibumaku and Shibu, is enough to motivate them. Because if you can win on logic, not on your English skill, on your loudness, or how great I sound, then the chance of you and the likelihood of you succeeding in the future and winning the round is just much more greater in our side. I think logic is simple, right? In their side, in government side, is they're talking about how whether you win on the round or not is based on the judge, on their subjectivity, right? Because if you we don't get depressed because you lost because of your sheer luck, then judges, I think you should vote for our side, because in government side they're gonna feel satisfied with losing because they think that they got a bad judge and they won't feel depressed. I think that's what they're trying to push, right? So on the likelihood of more opt-in, I think in our side there's much more likelihood. But then B, I want to weigh on the extent of more opt-in, right? What are the impacts of it, right? I think we get more audiences. This is a unique benefit in our side, because look at Olympics, there's so much audiences, and today, I have a lot of friends in schools whose friends have come to cheer for their school and their team from literally other prefectures, and they have to go on a train, right? They're literally cheering for their teammates, and that excitement and cheering for their teammates, more audiences, this leads to more extent of opt-in, and the magnitude is just greater because we have more audiences, more opt-in. The last clash I would like to prove is on motivation, right? I like to prove it using 4 metrics. The A, on the metric of likelihood and motivation. In our side, we have more technical skills they can improve. The implication is that more hard work is more rewarded, right? In government side world, debate win or losses is based on a cosmic karma. Whether I picked a good judge who liked me or not, right? Who liked that I spoke in a loud voice rather than a small voice. So in our side, the likelihood of being motivated is much more greater because people can feel the solvency and their need to improve better. B, I would like to weigh on the logical priority. In our side, you will need the will to win. You have the will to win. The reason why government side is so hard in trying to disprove our case is because they want to win this round. It is so obvious. Why are they saying that they don't want to win this round? I don't get it. There's no will to win in their side of the rock because they base everything on the subjectivity of the judges, whether the judges like their speech or not. So proud to oppose.
I thank the speaker for the speech. Let's call upon the final speaker of the round. Gov may reply. Here.
Panel, ladies and gentlemen, why do you love debating? I love debating because the beauty of my speeches, how I appeal to the emotions, is why I am able to convince people. It is not simply about winning. It is a fact that it was a split decision. That some people believed in my arguments, in my emotional appeal, and that is why they voted for me. It is not simply about cramming mechanism examples, things that barely are able to be used in the average world into your speeches. We are proud to propose. Before I move on to my two clashes, 3 pieces of clarification. First, about the vulnerable people they identify. They tell us that some people aren't that adept at English. They're gonna be better off when logic is pushed. But I want to note they never solve it on their side either, because learning those logics, which are probably often in English in high-level debates like WDC, is really hard too. You are not able to learn those logic very easily as they try to push it to me. I think the barrier to entry is still as high on their side. Secondly, about inflammatory rhetoric. They tell you that, oh, you're gonna buy into Trump now. I don't think that is true. We are fine with taking a hard stance. We can say art is only about emotions. But even if that is true, you still have the average, logical reasoning. Change is not happening, even when it obviously is. To value is sinking. I think you're able to make the decision on either side of the house. Thirdly, about teamwork. We're fine with conceding to the rebuttal. Maybe you care too much about individuality, but you still have other incentives. I don't want Hurricane Shia to hate me, and that is why I will still work together with them. 2 clashes in my speech then. Firstly, about individual debaters. They tell us about motivation. We tell you that there is limitation of winning, that even if you have motivation, that crashes at the point in which it is hinged upon you winning. We also tell you about transferability of skills, that when you are pushed to follow a certain criteria, you try to fit that criteria as much as possible. They tell us that you value logic. Yes, you do. That is exactly why it is bad. Because you cram so many mechanisms, so many theories that normal people don't understand into your speeches. You are unable to use it out of debate land. They never responded to this crucial point from DPM. Debaters' hard work shouldn't be concluded within the debate community. That is bad. But even if we concede to everything they say, 2 metrics why we should take ours. Because on their side, sure, some extent, you get success. You get motivation while you're winning within your club practice or at Tolofken Taikai or at HPDU Nationals. But at one point, you are going to lose. You are going to have to compete with debaters who are better than you. At Oxford, at Cambridge, at WDC, at WSDC. I think there's a multitude of people who are better than you. On their side, they say, oh, it was an objective decision by the judge who's unbiased. And it is not something that I can change. It is my lack that my mechanisms aren't going to work anymore. Until now they worked, but for some reason they don't work. But on our side, I think we are able to have far better motivation. That maybe on their world, they have different Western perspectives. We just have to learn more in order to appeal to these perspectives, to appeal to their emotions, and you can still win. Second metric about scale benefit, that even if everyone is the same level of beta, most people do not break, they do not win, only one person is the champion, we say the majority of debaters. But secondly, about the debate community. They say that clear criteria makes opt-in. We tell you that the perception that criteria, cramming in logic makes you seem more angry. And there's social relevance when it is art, because sports seems too specialized. You have too much criteria. But when it is art, like piano or music or just Picasso, you are able to, it's open to interpretation. You're easily able to see it. The winning here is plausibility of opt-in. Maybe some people love logic, maybe opposition sides love the mechanisms, but everyone has emotions. Everyone knows that art is important, and that is why we take this debate. Propose.
I thank the speaker for the speech, and I thank everyone for the round. Please give a round of applause for all the debaters.